think the chamber.
Chamber. Put it out all there.
Reached out to her to someone in Shore West, and she sent it out to all of her agents. Her area. Trying the best we could to get it to as many people.
We all show up, can't complain, right?
In theory.
Wrong.
I just sent Dave an email. I fully understand.
All the complaints.
Was this? Like that.
Look at the 2050 plan we did, that's page 140 of the. Then. That little sketch there. We do this area.
That was part of the villages. 2050.
Had all of the surveys.
I don't remember if I. A lot of different options or. Okay, right.
I used to have a destination, there is one in Germantown.
I was having.
Okay. Okay.
See how long I'm here.
Hey, how you doing? Oh, no problem. All right, good. Either one, any of them. Only one.
Door open.
Oh, yeah, please.
Layers. Do I come in?
Yes, very much.
Florida? This weather hasn't convinced you to move to Florida?
It's been less.
I think they got,
Got more
10 inches.
leaves.
Pensacola got like 9 or 10 inches.
I guess.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Holy-
I had a call from your friend, and he asked me how my horizon was. Really upset because all of the deliveries. Oh, it was snow, so they don't have that.
They're soft, is right.
It had 60 degrees down there. Everyone brings up the winter clothes because it's freezing for them. So you always know that you like last first. People interacting with moving to Florida because if it's a degree, everyone will be short and tank top. Or clothes.
Yeah.
You know, who doesn't want there.
So. Other experience you got with them.
They get to you to come in there.
Sorry, here.
That's in Germany. I said, no, in those cases.
I think that's a lot.
You know.
Try to sprinkling.
This is for year when they got it.
Yeah, I think that one is.
I don't know, I suppose it.
The guy.
So.
Trying to get the right.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks. Across the street. Okay, okay. Yeah.
I didn't realize my fest has been going on for that long. 30 some years. Wow.
That David,
Yeah, there's a that's great. That's what makes a village a community. Yep.
You
Howdy.
can view like one of the village's website, right? Or live
yes.
on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I think we fixed the QR code snafu, so we're just one QR code, so I think we've got that sorted. Looks like a good turnout already.
Yeah.
right, good evening, everyone. May I ask you to take your seats and we can get started here. It is about 6:31, so we'll get the meeting underway. My name is Steve Krecklow. I'm the village administrator here in Germantown, and I appreciate all of you who came out this evening in the cold, wintry weather events. But you know, this is probably the only time in my life that I've been able to say this, but at least we're not getting as much snow as they are in Pensacola today. So we're a little bit better off than they are in Florida. This is our second visioning session related to the Pilgrim Mequon intersection area, and in particular, the Flower Source property. I'm just going to give a brief introduction, and then we'll have our associates from Rinka Architects take over the rest of the meeting. I wanted to give some background on why we're looking at this area. As I think you're all probably pretty well aware, up until a couple of years ago, the Flower Source was one of the landmark Germantown businesses on Pilgrim Road, just south of Mequon. And they did make a decision to retire and close up shop, and sold their property to a development company in the Milwaukee area called Gray Wolf Development. And Gray Wolf purchased it for the purpose of developing the property. As we had some very initial discussions with Gray Wolf after they purchased it, the property as it is now is zoned commercial retail. So that means that it would be open for development, and some of the proposals that have come up in nearby areas for things like a Jiffy Lube, a drive-through restaurant, self-storage units, those kinds of things are what the current zoning would allow on the Flower Source property, and some of the types of things that have come up in conversations in this area. Upon reviewing the 2050 plan, which was adopted in 2022, the village board looked at this as really a key component to plans for the village center district. In fact, if you look at the 2050 plan, that intersection is specifically identified as an area that the village board and the plan commission wanted to focus on for some high level, high quality development that adds something to the village of Germantown. We have been working through this community input area on kind of developing a vision for what that intersection could look like, what the Flower Source property could look like, both now and in the future. And we really appreciate your attendance here tonight and your participation in the process. I should say, in addition to all of you in the room, those of you who are watching on Channel 25 or on YouTube, however you're participating, we do appreciate that. And the goal here is to try to make sure that we're attracting the kind of development that the residents want, that you all want to see in that area. And then we try to avoid the things that the community does not want. So we're here to collect that input. I'll talk a little bit about the format and the structure of the meeting this evening. As I mentioned, Eric from Rinka is going to get up in a moment here and walk through some slides. They'll be using a tool that they use in meetings like this to systematically collect information. You'll notice there's some QR codes around the room. You'll have an opportunity, if you have your phone with you, to scan those, and you can provide some input through your phone. We do have some people who can help you if you're having trouble accessing that. We can give you some assistance so you're able to provide that input. If you're unable to do that electronically, either here in the room or at home, just let me know after the meeting, and we'll get some paper copies for you and some opportunities for you to participate that way. We want to make sure everyone is able to participate. Okay, I'm sorry. We already have the paper copies available. So if you want one, raise your hand, and we'll make sure that you get one of those. Following the end of the Rinka presentation, we're going to take just a moment or a couple of moments and reset the room. And then we're going to allow you all to come up and kind of have a each person who would like to can have a 3-minute opportunity just to make open comments, ask any questions that you'd like. We won't be trying to answer those questions this evening. We just want to try to, if you have questions, record them, and we'll get some documentation out after we've had a chance to make sure that we've collected all the questions and provided that information. And one final note before I turn it over to Eric, I just do want to mention one thing that we won't specifically be getting into this evening that I know is of interest to a lot of folks. A couple of you that came in for the early birds here asked me a couple of questions about, the financing of this and how this would work. And at this point, it's really too early to tell that, to determine, what those costs might be and how it might be financed. There are several options. Many of the communities around us that have had similar projects have used tax increment district financing, and that is an option that's available. That's how Mequon paid for theirs, Menominee Falls, Cedarburg, others that have done these types of projects have used tax increment district financing as a way to make sure that there's no impact on residents' property tax bills. So, but that is a question that we can't answer any more definitively than that at this point. With that, I will turn it over to Eric, who will walk through Rinka's presentation.
Thank you, Steve. So we'd like to start with just defining the area that we're talking about today. So the area we're talking about today is shown here in green. It includes an area around and surrounding the Flower Source property and extends all the way along both Mequon Road and Pilgrim Road. The reason that we're looking at this whole area, I think Steve did a great job of setting the table here. The reason we're talking about this whole area is to really just set a framework for good development, the kind of development that you all want to see in your community. That's the data that we've been collecting in our first visiting session and we intend to build on today. So what do you all want to see in your community, and how can we help set up the framework to allow Steve and team to ensure that that is the development that is allowed and permitted and allowed to develop for this property. So with that, we're like I said, we're continuing to collect some information. Well, we'd like to start right away and make sure that you're all sort of connected. If you do have a device and you have a QR code, anyone that doesn't have a QR code and can't scan the QR code in front of you, please raise your hand. We can get you one. But you're basically taking a picture of the QR code, and if you click the link rather than take the picture, you should be seeing a green arrow that says you're all set, and we're about to ask the first question. So if anyone doesn't want to use this technology, there are paper copies that we can hand out if you raise your hand rather than doing the QR code. Or we have other copies of the QR code. And again, this is a way that we can collect some information, but there are paper versions, and we can send these paper versions out to you as well if you reach out to Steve. Okay, we're going to move forward into the first question. So before we get into any of the presentation or any of the data that, recap the data that we heard last time, how excited are you about the opportunity and the potential this development area has for Germantown? So the Flower Source property, the surrounding properties, all the way out to the corner of Mequon and Pilgrim, how excited are you by the potential? So this property represents, not just the immediate future, but the long-term future for that parcel can be catalytic for the community. How do you feel the potential is? So we're sitting at about a 7.8, 7.9. So we're pretty optimistic that there is a lot of potential for the community, and that's, I think that's positive already. We believe that if we set the right framework in place, that we could do something special here for the community and that can influence generations to come. Okay, so together, last time we asked a lot of questions around visioning, about the vision behind this property. And we've sort of created a statement, not just with your input, but with the input from the 2050 planning exercise that occurred a couple of years ago. From other community leaders, we've spoken with a lot of stakeholders, and we'll let you know who all those individuals are as we go through this presentation. But I'd like to read that vision statement out. And this, again, this has been collected by a lot of different voices in the community. And, you know, that may be something that we want to continue to craft together. So think about this statement. The vision for this site is to create a welcoming gateway to Germantown that reflects the community's rich heritage and enhances its sense of place. We've heard a few times that Germantown lacks a heart or a destination. That's what that first statement tries to get to. By embracing the goals of the 2050 plan, the area will offer spaces that bring people together, diverse housing options, vibrant local businesses, and inviting public spaces, all connected through pedestrian-friendly infrastructure. This vision celebrates Germantown's unique character while fostering connections and opportunities for future generations. So that's a pretty lofty goal. And I think that 7.8 or 7.9% of you feel that goal is achievable. So help us stay on track and achieve that goal. So in our last meeting, if we could wait until the end, that would be great, but yes. It does. Again, so you know, this work will happen over several years, right? This is about setting up a framework for the future. So there has been conversations with many of those property owners, if not all of them. And you know, we're determining the future use. Maybe it's 5 years from now or 10 years from now on some of those properties. Maybe it's immediate. So this is a study area that we're all dreaming about the future of. Yep. Okay, so the last time we were together, we brought some planning principles, and we didn't create these out of thin air. We crafted these with a lot of community input. And you voted on these, and the individuals online voted on these, and you can see the ones that are highlighted that got the most votes were amenity-rich public realm, strong economic base, Germantown character and uniqueness, and mix of use. And we'd like to get into these in a little bit more detail today, because this is sort of our north arrow. This is what we're using to guide our plan. So we'd like to get into these four in a little bit more detail tonight, starting with the mix of use. So these are kind of the attributes of bringing a mix of use to this development, what these attributes are. We'd like for you to help us prioritize these, and then we'll show you some research that we've done on mix of use. We're trying to bring your vision to light here. So there are four attributes to a mix of use. A great mixed use development will create multi-generational use. So it'll appeal to many different generations in the community. It can create safe activated spaces. So if you have residential near commercial, there's always eyes on a space, making it safe, welcoming, and vibrant. Letter C is providing choices for people experiencing Germantown. So we know that a lot of you travel outside of Germantown for your recreation. We want to see people coming to Germantown. Creating that mix of use can give a range of different experiences for individuals coming to Germantown to experience these businesses and mix of uses. And then access to parks and open space. There'll be a lot of this property that will be undeveloped or developed as parkland. So to have access to that space could be one of the uses on the site. So if we can, again, go back to that QR code, if you still have your device open, let's rank out of those four attributes. What do you think is the best characteristic to the mix of use that we should be focusing our plan around? Is it that mixed, that multi-generational? Is it a safe place? Is it providing choice for experiencing Germantown? Or is it access to parks and open space? Okay, so we've been asked to repeat the question. So the question is, in the category of mix of use, we've heard that you want a range of different mixes of use on this property. Everything from residential to commercial, retail, parks and recreation, public gathering space. Out of all of those, this idea of a mixed use development, what are the attributes that are most important to you? Is it that multi-generational use, providing choices for people experiencing Watertown, creating a safe place, or having that access to parks and open space? So as the votes come in, it's obviously pushing these priorities up and down, and you can start to see how we will use this information to guide our master plan. If providing choice to people coming to Germantown it seems like it's the leading the leading attribute or characteristic, that will be a slightly different plan than one that's about one of those other priorities, for example. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving. Votes are still coming in. I don't want to move until the bars have stopped moving. Okay, we're going to keep going. So since we last met, you sort of set the priority. This should be a mixed use development. So we went ahead and we had some good conversations with the professionals and the industry and some brokers. And we asked the question, is there a demand in Germantown for these mix and ranges of uses? And we had pretty positive feedback. There's up to 20,000 square foot of office, retail, and commercial space needed in Germantown today. And projected over the next 5 years, it grows even greater than that. So we asked the question, what about at that intersection of Pilgrim and Mequon Road? And there was encouraging news there as well. Now to attract the highest quality of these mixed use, these potential retailers or commercial businesses, wanting to be part of a mixed use development is definitely, definitely high in their priority list. So just know that. But we did sort of validate with the market that there's pent up demand in some of the vacancy rates, and there's definitely some good projections in terms of bringing some mix of use to the campus. The next priority, as heard from you in our first visioning session, was about Germantown's uniqueness and character. We asked some questions about what makes Germantown unique. We got some really good feedback from you all, and we've advanced that conversation. We'll show you that next, but we wanted to ask another question about uniquely Germantown. Which of these priorities in that character and uniqueness do you think we should be expressing the strongest? Is it demonstrating your vision values? Is it building upon regional and cultural historical influences? Is it celebrating your history? Is it protecting and preserving the rural character of this community? Is it celebrating Germantown's uniqueness by expanding its sense of identity? We have heard from some individuals that there's maybe a lack of identity, that maybe this development can help it present Germantown outward toward other communities or visitors in a slightly different way. So out of those 4 priorities, can you help us prioritize them? So again, it's in the category of uniqueness, which of these characteristics are stronger or should be strongest? Germantown's uniqueness, protect and preserve rural character, build upon the regional and cultural historical influences, or demonstrate the values in the village of Germantown. So it looks like we have a expanding a sense of identity seems like a clear a clear winner here. We're leading the race anyway. So what we have done since our last visioning session, when you gave us guidance on the importance of this for the community, is we asked ourselves, okay, well, let's do some research on what makes Germantown unique. So one individual we spoke to was the director of the Germantown Historical Society. And we had a really great conversation about the early founders of the city. And we had a lot of conversations about the early families that first came here and settled Germantown. And the conversation kept coming back to this idea of like-minded individuals who valued their freedoms and wanted to build a culture to support each other and thrive. And this is best evidenced in the state's first insurance company, right? So that was founded here in Germantown, and it was founded, as part of a close-knit community, looking after each other's interests and goals and creating that sense of community. And we thought that would be a really nice thing to celebrate as part of the project. And we can continue to dream about that together of what that could look like. Another takeaway, which was quite interesting, is the Fond du Lac Avenue coming out of Milwaukee. The Fond du Lac Indian Walking Trail actually goes straight through and across that intersection of Mequon Road and Pilgrim Road. We had never heard of the Fond du Lac Walking Indian Trail, but like the way they've celebrated the Winnebago Trail, maybe there's an opportunity to celebrate that, to provide a memorial marker around those ideas. So again, we want to continue to research your great community, and we want to celebrate that as part of this plan. And we'd love any other ideas that you have. We'll take them all on board. Okay, moving along to the next priority. So you had very loud and clear in our last meeting. I think this was the second most voted planning principle was a strong economic base. So what do you all mean by a strong economic base? And we gave you 5 sort of priorities: attracting residents and businesses, diverse array of goods and services and employment, encouraging infill development to promote the village as a destination, safe, reliable, and adequate facilities, and then increase tax base to improve the quality of public amenities. So under economic base, which of those do you feel are the strongest priorities? And we're going to show you how all of these apply to a plan here shortly. Go ahead.
Infill development, if you could.
Yeah, what we mean by infill development is a lot of times communities will have what we like to call missing teeth. Like, a development is, there's quality development, and then there's maybe a lack of quality or a lack of, it's a just undeveloped property. To fill in those gaps, that's what we mean by infill development. I mean, right now, the Flower Source property is one of those properties that, that needs to be sort of developed similar to the quality of the surrounding developments, as an example. So again, we're continuing to sort of collect this information from you all so you can help guide the plan. We are going to show you how this will influence our work here shortly, and you'll get a first glimpse of how we're starting to organize the site. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. So last time you had mentioned that strong economic base is should really be one of the most important aspects of this plan. So how do we make that happen? Having community focused amenities that elevate quality life, it can really position Germantown around among surrounding communities. If you haven't realized, your surrounding communities are all in some ways competing for residents. They're competing for high quality, good businesses, great residents, a quality school system. All of those things are happening in communities around you and in your community. So how do we make sure that this development helps bring the overall quality of Germantown and raises it to maybe the bar that some of the surrounding communities or above the bar that's set at on some of the surrounding communities. And I think this can be evidenced in the questions that we asked in our first visioning session. How many people in the room and on in online listening to the visioning session, how many of those individuals that are interested in this development live in Germantown? That was 82%. How many work in Germantown? 62%. And how many of those individuals play in Germantown? Down to 46%. Would creating a mixed-use quality destinational development on this property, would that increase some of those numbers? And would that allow us all or you all to spend your local dollars locally and build and boost that economic base? I guess I don't have the answer to that question, but I think that's the question that we're trying to all think about together. So since we were together in the visioning session, we did have a good conversation with the superintendent of schools, and they had mentioned that undesirable development or lower quality development can often increase transient students and staff. So their teachers, often move out of the community, and they have to. It's hard to have that consistent level of good quality education. So they sort of reiterated that high quality development actually affects not just our opportunities to go to a good a restaurant, but also to support your school system and the quality of education for Germantown. So I guess the takeaways for that strong economic base are improving the way people live, work, and play in Germantown can really raise the bar for the whole community. And I guess that's where I think this development can take us in the future of the land use for this site. Okay, moving on from there, we have amenity-rich public realm, and this one was voted as the most important planning principle that we should use to guide our planning work. So what does it mean, an amenity-rich public realm? And which of those priorities, which of the characteristics should we prioritize? Well, welcoming public spaces for social gatherings, enhancing and protecting the pedestrian experience, activating public spaces, or providing outdoor activities. And again, if you need the QR code, there's some around if your phone needs to be refreshed. Can you pop up the QR code? There it is in the corner if you need it. Quite a few people voting online, it looks. Okay, so we'll keep going. Last time we presented some ideas around good public space making and place making. And I wanted to sort of refresh those ideas. And this is around, this idea of public amenities or creating a destination. Last time we did a little deep dive and we went around to some German marketplatzes just to understand what makes a good public space and what's something that we could apply to Germantown that could be uniquely Germantown. And one of the things that was important in all of these spaces was a good sense of enclosure. So having a kind of 4 walls to enclose the space. And they were often articulated with a market street running along one side of them, which a lot of the market street brought a lot of the activities and were able to set up and take down events. And then there was often a fountain or art or some kind of a identity, a monument within those market plots that sort of celebrated the place. And I think all of those things are very relevant to, the questions or the feedback that we've got from you all. And we think that this idea could really begin to create this activated plaza, activated destination for, for this mix of uses and the things that we've been hearing from you. So we wanted to bring that back up again before we get into the first kind of framework for how this property could be used. And it kind of centers around this idea of a market plots. Since we were together last at the first visioning session, we went ahead and engaged and talked to the Chamber of Commerce, and all of the word cloud on the right were ideas that came from this room as you began to recommend or suggest some other activities that we could host within that market plots, that mixed use meeting plaza space. And on the left is a list of some of the events that are hosted around the community that the Chamber of Commerce thought may be a good fit for the market plots. So you can start to see that if we create a space, they will come. Some of these events could come to this property and be hosted right there in the new market plots for Germantown. So out of all of that list, and now we've kind of combined the list that we heard from the Chamber of Commerce and the list of events that you all mentioned, if you had 100 points to spend on all of these, and this activity is applying 10 points, or you can apply as many points as you want for each event, but with a total of 100 points, how would you apply them across these events? What would you like to see? If we had a destination center as part of this development, what would you like to see hosted on this property at the corner of Pilgrim and Mequon Road? Farmers Market, MyFest, German Christmas Market got right to the top of the list. Love it. So this, the reason we would ask a question like this, it's really about us making sure as planners and architects that we design the space to accommodate, that's flexible enough to accommodate, as many of these events as we can, but especially the ones that you all feel would be a great fit for this property. It's hard to move on when you see people still voting. There will be a chance to continue to take this survey after the meeting. So don't feel like this is your only opportunity. But let's keep moving. Looks like the farmers market's gonna win this one. Okay, so now we'd like to turn all of those planning principles into the start of a framework. And of course, we want your feedback on this framework as well. We will, like Steve said, we will have an opportunity for comments and questions. But let's take it back to the study area, this catalytic zone of potential for the community. So one of the reasons that this makes sense as a great gateway, a destination for the community, is its visibility and its proximity on Mequon and Pilgrim. There are like 12,000 vehicular trips on Mequon Road and 11,000 on Pilgrim Road. So there's a lot of visibility and a lot of traffic. And this can build, it can make a lot of these uses very viable at this intersection. There's also great opportunities for access off of those streets, as long as we make sure that we're designing the traffic flow patterns appropriately. We can access this property in a couple of great locations, and then we can connect an internal street network to those access points. From there, obviously leveraging the high visibility zone, as we went out and talked to some potential brokers, all of any of the retail or commercial businesses, they want to be out, and visible on Mequon and Pilgrim. So that really starts to sort of divide this property with more commercial and retail at the north end and more residential opportunity to the south end of the property. So here you can see the retail, commercial, and community use zones shown in that lighter sort of pink color. And then the other area that's come on in this image is the natural area. So there's going to be many acres of this property that will continually be an open natural environment. From there, from the retail commercial community zone, which is this idea of a market plots, which we're going to zoom into in a second and get a little bit more detail on. From there, we start to see a transitional residential zone. Further off of Pilgrim Road is another residential zone B. A little bit further from the roadway, maybe there we have a little bit more housing units per acre. And then as we get to the south, that's where we transition again to the surrounding single-family residential neighborhoods to the east, the south, and the west. So as you can see, it's a gradient. It starts with that higher density visibility on the corner with the great retail, the market plots, and then transitions in as a gradient all the way back down to the single-family zones to the south. And then connecting it all together with a great network of trails and connectivities. We want this environment to be walkable, to be bikeable, to be a great gathering place for all the surrounding communities to connect to. So now what we've done is we've zoomed right into that intersection of Mequon and Pilgrim to looking at the gateway right at the intersection and those two access points. And here we'd like to show a little bit more detail the zones that we're talking about. So that commercial zone facing both Mequon Road and Pilgrim Road wraps the corner. That's where we start to bring in this idea of a market street. So that's where the farmers market, where all these events could load in and out from. And this is a very walkable, welcoming street. Think of a sort of European cobblestone street. And from there, we're starting to frame the market plots. So this is that open gathering space where all these events could be hosted, like MyFest, the farmers market, those events that you said could come to this property. They're here on the market plots. And then as a backstop to the market plots, we have another mixed use zone. So this would be residential, maybe on upper floors, but the ground floor could be commercial to activate that market plots. We've taken it another step further, because I think we heard in our last, in some conversations with different individuals, some of the things you'd like to see in this environment or this gathering space, having that great gateway signage to celebrate Germantown right at the intersection, and then outdoor dining opportunities. We've referenced Hollander a few times, having that outdoor seating area. You can see that highlighted here. And then maybe there's an opportunity for a splash pad or a fountain or some kind of a memorial within or a moment within the market plots. That was the initial thinking. Of course, these are just initial ideas, and we want to work together and make sure that this is what you all want to see in your community. So from there, we started to take a couple of those events that you mentioned that would be great to see, and we just put them into the market plots so you can see how they might work or function. The first is an event band shell. This could be a permanent construction, could sit there permanently. It could be something that just comes in for events, but this shows how that space could be used and how it could be this vibrant social gathering space. The MyFest Pavilion, if you've been to MyFest, we had a great conversation with the operators of MyFest earlier today, just to talk with them about their needs and how this event could be hosted in the market plots. And then finally, you can see the farmers market set up. Each one of those little squares represents a 10 by 10 farmer's market tent. And you can see how they would use Market Street to support that event and how that event could be hosted in the market plots. So we've got right into detail. You can see how all of the feedback that you're starting to give us, how we can apply that to our planning, those planning principles to how we're intending to use this land. So with that, we'd like to come back to the question that we started with. So after now seeing providing your input, hearing some of the framework for how we're thinking about maybe using this property in this study area, how excited are you about the opportunities and the potential this development has for Germantown? So you had a chance to answer before you heard and saw the development ideas or the framework, and now you have a chance after the fact. And with that, Steve,
All right.
should I hand it back to you?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you, Eric. So that concludes the first part of the meeting this evening, which was the presentation and the opportunity for input using the electronic means. We also know that there are some folks who would like to make some open-ended comments. So we're going to take a couple of minutes now just to reset the room here. Going to bring a podium out and allow folks to come on up and make their comments. We will have a 3-minute limit on each person's time here this evening. We want to try to be fair to everyone and make sure that people don't have to wait too long for their turn so that they are out too late in the snow and the ice here. One other comment that I'll make, and as we reset, I'll invite, we have some of the trustees who are here this evening, and invite them if they'd like to come up to the dais and sit so they can make sure they can hear the comments. They're welcome to do that. But just so that the audience knows, this meeting was posted and publicized as a community input meeting and not a village board meeting. And what that means is the village board members can be here, they can listen, they can hear your responses, but they cannot have a discussion on these items here today. So that's part of the reasons why we're not going to be answering your questions today. We're going to record them and get that information out. But it would be a violation of open meetings law if our trustees were answering your questions, getting into a discussion or a debate. That'll happen at some time in the future at a village board meeting. So, with the risk of offending my bosses, I might say it's a great opportunity for you to get a chance to speak, and the politicians have to listen for a change. So, with that, let me turn the microphones off and pause, and we'll get the lectern out, and then we'll take public comments. All right, we are set up here and ready. The microphone is on, so if I could ask you, and since this is not a board meeting, we don't need you to fill out the paperwork. We're not going to be recording who spoke. This is not an official public hearing. If and when this proposal moves forward, there will be an official public hearing. That's not what this is. This is an opportunity for you to make your comments and ask your questions. We will be taking some notes while you do that. So please, if you can, whoever would like to come up first can make your way to the microphone. We will have the 3-minute timer moving and we will be taking notes. Any volunteers? Anyone want to speak?
All right. Can you go back to that, where your green outline is?
Yeah, we can do that. Let's switch over
So you
here.
know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
That'll be my only question.
Showing.
No. One of your, okay. There you go.
I'm right
It's
there.
way on the south end here in the corner.
Okay.
There is houses there. Are those houses going to be zeroed by this plan?
Point to those.
Like down here? Because this is the strip mall, the insurance agency, the restaurant. It looks like you're including these couple of houses here.
On Lyle Lake.
Well, not, Lyle Lane's down here. It's before that.
Yeah.
Their property goes way back. You can see it goes way back.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, we're not going to respond to all the questions tonight, but we will, I got that one down and we will be preparing a Q&A document that we'll be making available and it'll be on the village website sometime next week. If you do leave your email address at in the sign-in list, we'll email it to you directly when it's done.
I guess the other question is so your retail spaces are very limited. It seems like most of the development is going to be residential. So that could be a problem as far as the intersection goes. I know you talked about working with the state and redesigning the whole intersection and everything. It just seems like we're getting more and more residents. And we just had a referendum a few years ago about, the high school. And last year it was about the fire and police department and everything else. So now you're bringing in more residents, which is going to be requiring more public aid. If you're going to have public gatherings, where do you plan on parking? Another question. Sorry.
All right, keep asking them.
You talk about, when you talked about the survey here, you talked about things that people wanted, the culture of Germantown. You go to the historical, you talk to the guy at the Historical Society. That's used once a year. Nobody goes there any other time, hardly ever. Talk about green space, parks. There's parks all over here. Nobody uses. Fireman's Park. There is a splash pad down on, Kinderberg. That's the only park I've really had seen anybody go to. There's one on County Line. There's one out on Country Air. There's parks all over. Nobody uses them. What else? It's a good idea. I think it's got some legs. I think if you developed it like we talked about, like on Mequon Road and Green Bay, in there, where you don't have retail areas that the police are always at, like Walmart and Fleet Farm, and where they're always, time's up. What I'm saying? I don't want to say higher end, but things that people aren't going to steal stuff from because they're always getting called down to those retail theft and everything else. You don't need another place for the police to be all.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the comments. All right, anyone else like to speak?
Thanks for the presentation tonight. I had shared a comment at the previous session, the fact that these are such directed choices. People may want to see development there, but your pre-planned selection of choices might not necessarily be truly what the community wants. And I had requested that we have open fields here that people could have put down other things. And to answer that gentleman's question, follow the village board meetings. They already have an agent engaged for buying those properties and writing. Yes. So the village is engaging in being a developer. So I think I'm not against development, but I don't want to see high density rentals. And we had a presenter at the village board meeting the other night that talked about the statistics of rental housing versus home ownership. And those renters only tax our resources. They don't improve our tax base. And I think, I agree, we need better high-end shopping things and not another Walmart, but we do not need a bunch of rental housing to add to the congestion of that area. And I think this is good that you're holding this session. I think we need more than 40 people in the room. I don't know how many we have online, but this is a big deal. The village is spending a lot of money that people aren't aware of, and this is going to be a TID tax district. Another Blackstone Creek came to the village board meeting, and they have like a 300 unit planned development that they want to do. Again, highly renters. Another group came for the corner of County Line and Lannon Road. That too, high level of renters, very little home ownership. So it's nice that you came to this. You need to get engaged and go to the village board meetings too and see the bigger picture of how they're spending our money.
Village board meets first and third Monday of every month. First and third Monday at 7 o'clock. Anybody else? Next speaker?
I like the thought process about what you're putting together. I agree with many of the comments that the lady before me talked about in terms of the presumptions rather than it being open-ended. First question, will all the paper ballots that were completed in here be included in the survey numbers for the final total? Okay, great. Will the presentation be available and posted online later on for other people to look at, like you did last time?
Yes, this is being recorded and it will be available online. People will also be able to vote online or participate in the survey.
More?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
multiple times. Okay, good. I also had a question about parking. It seems like an awfully small marketplace. It would seem to me that you might want the residential A and the market area to be this part of the same thing and not have the residential there. If you're going to have a band shell, which is not a bad idea, those residences are going to be noisy with all the activity and people coming and going. Especially during MyFest. It's a very busy event that lasts 3 days. So I would hesitate about that. And also you need to define parking on this in your bubble diagrams. I don't think splash pads and dining goes together, especially in a small area like that. And if you do combine residential A and the market area, it would give you the opportunity to have a diagonal path that continues all the way on through into the open natural areas, so that it brings in the rural a bit more than you have shown already, because it is important, especially for those of us who live in the rural side, to have a nod towards the fact that this is Germantown is not just the south side, there's also the north side, and the history of this community is important to many of us. So thanks, and thanks for doing that.
All right, next.
Hi there. I'm excited about the new development opportunity. I think I'm glad we're looking forward and looking at for some opportunities here. But one of the questions that I have is I feel like we're almost reconstructing what we have and we're ignoring what's already in place. We have a downtown that could easily have cobblestone streets. We have a band shell at Fireman's Park. We have unutilized buildings like the firehouse there, the Wright Auto that's for sale, the old fireman's office building. Those would make great restaurants, little boutique shops, exactly what you're talking about. The band shell would be away from the residential area or is away from high density residential area where noise would not be as much of an issue. Rather than develop something new that the taxpayers are going to take and, pay for, maybe we should reconsider what we have. I know Gales is always a conversation on the east end of Main Street, but the west end of Main Street is full of the high density housing. There's areas there for redevelopment. There's a way to connect our existing walking path to include the downtown area. I would rather us focus on what we have and make it what it always should have been, what we have talked about for years that has never happened, rather than put the money into something brand new, acquire properties of residential people and build things in the backyard of residential that has been there for a long time that may not want it. So something else to consider.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak this evening?
Good evening. Thanks for having this session. I guess I have just a couple of things. First, in the residential area, how many units are you considering for that? And then it also seems weird that you would place MyFest right next to residential area after all of the noise ordinance discussions that the board has had recently. Just seems like not a good mix to have all those residents right next to where you're going to have all this loud music.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Anyone else?
I was wondering if that area where you're gonna develop is a wetland? And if so, how is that gonna be addressed?
That's a question we can address. Any other questions?
No,
we
that's
have?
it.
All right, thank you very much. Any other speakers? All right, well, if not, let me just close things out here and just say that, again, we appreciate everyone coming this evening. And, we did have quite a few people online or on Channel 25 who are watching. We appreciate that participation as well. We will take all of the questions that were gathered here this evening and as well, and put together a Q&A document that we'll be making available. Again, if you want that emailed to you directly, please leave your email address at the table in the back of the room, and we will send that out to you. We will be also compiling all of the results, both from the comments that were made here at the end, as well as input into the system during this meeting and the prior one, and we'll be reporting that to the village board. Please keep an eye out on the village website, Facebook page, if we'll post information there if there are any additional meetings. If you think of other questions, you can send those to the village comments email address. That's comments@germantownwi.gov. Or if it's easier, I left a few of my business cards at the back table. They have my email address on and my phone number. You can feel free to reach out to me at any point with any other questions you have or any other feedback you have. So with that, thank you very much. Everybody drive safely this evening and appreciate your time. The survey will be open for at least another week, 2 weeks. Thank you.